So I've had a really bad day today. My grandmother went in the hospital. She's in her 90s. She's missing an arm. She's pretty much blind due to macular degeneration. She broke her ankle not long ago and she can't walk because you can't really rehab a 90-some-year-old. She went to the hospital. Apparently she was getting blood in her stomach, and when I woke up this morning to go to work, my father had texted me and told me that she had passed. So that happened, and honestly, like, we put down animals when they're not suffering as much as my grandmother was. So, like, I came to grips with the fact that Grandma was going to go a long time ago. When things started to really deteriorate with her health, that was when I was kind of like, well, yeah, gotta prepare for this. So, it's not like it was unexpected, and it's not like to my mind, better. You know what I mean? You get to a certain point, and it's just like, Jesus, why? But yeah, so that happened, and then I went to work, and while I was at work, I was changing a blade on one of the machines, and the blade moved, not supposed to move, the blade moved, and it cut through my Kevlar glove and into my hand. So, 6 stitches later, yay! So, I got to take the day off work pretty much. I worked for like an hour, and then I went to the hospital for a couple hours, and then I went home. So, yay! So I got stitches for the next 7 to 10 days. That's it. I'm not really telling you guys this for sympathy or anything like that. I'm telling you guys this because most likely I'm going to wind up taking a day off, probably for the funeral. And I might wind up taking another day off because I might just not want to do anything. So, if you wind up not seeing videos from me at any point this week, that's what's going on. And that's what's going on. But we're doing a video today. So, Styx Hexenhammer 666 is somebody that's kind of gotten on my radar lately. Not really for anything, just kind of, he was involved in the Kilroy thing. I guess he was going to be a speaker or on a panel or something like that. So he was in on the Kilroy thing, so he's just kind of been there. And I wound up watching one of his videos, and I thought it was a pretty interesting take. And I wanted to kind of go over it.
Alright everyone, I thought it was time to talk about an interesting observation that I've made over the last couple of years. It really, in the last 6 months, it's really taken off. And that's that something is beginning to form, especially on YouTube, but also on other sites, and it appears that there's a new type of political bloc that's actually taking form as the paradigm shift continues.
See, I kind of I've seen this too. I've noticed this too. Back even when I first started doing this just a year ago, things were a lot different than they are now. People handled a lot different people, and people weren't so much like topic based. They kind of laid into the person more than the topic. And, you know, some people didn't do it more than the topic. Some people just did it along with the topic. But that is a lot of that kind of like attacking people. That kind of seems like that's going by the wayside. Like that never kind of got anything done really. And it was great for just kind of getting out there and getting views and whatnot. But I think people are getting to a point where they want to solve problems more than just fuck around.
The old establishment is under more and more stress, and sort of the alt media, alt entertainment begins to rise up with more and more fervor, especially, again, on the internet. That's basically where it's taking place. Now, first, let me tell you that when the establishment goes after the internet, they're just trying to scapegoat it. The internet isn't what caused the paradigm shift we're under right now, where neoconservatism and neoliberalism are sort of losing favor because they never solve anything. It's would have begun waning anyway. The internet has just made it, I think, more potent and more, personally involved. Like, people can actually take part in the paradigm shift much more readily than they could maybe in the cable era, or certainly like in the era of radio, black and white TVs, AM, the telegraph, going back, the development of the printing press, but 90% of the population is not even literate, so it's being driven by a handful of people. In every past paradigm shift, technologically not driven, but at least entangled, only a small group of people ever really made use of it. For instance, again, printing presses developed, but most people are illiterate, so a small portion of users, as opposed to the general population. It's basically the intelligentsia of the era, and that continues for some centuries. The telegraph, most people never really, they didn't operate a telegraph. You had certain operators and people would send like letters, but a lot of people never even used them. They never had any reason to use them. It's still send a letter with a stagecoach, basically. The development of radio, most people didn't set up a radio tower on their barn or something. TV is controlled increasingly by a small number of companies. It was centralized technically to begin with. There were a few hundred firms ever. Most people were never involved with them, even public access. Most people don't use that either. They don't have the capability technologically. But most people in the world today have internet access. It's the majority of the world's population, even in countries that are underdeveloped. And so it's more, there's more participation by literally billions of individuals. It's cross-cultural as well for the first time. It's actually totally globalized, but it's not globalism, it's actually its opposite. Globalism is involuntary.
I would say I agree with him for the most part, but he is kind of portraying the internet as something that is just kind of coming around. Like, the internet's been around for a long time, so to kind of make the comparison with the printing press and saying, when the printing press was first invented, there weren't a lot of literate people, so not a lot of people were reading books. That's very true, but the internet hasn't just been first invented. And what I can say to maybe his point, and I don't know if this is exactly the point that he's making, but he's not really phrasing it clearly for me or whatever, but I would say that even though we've had the internet for a long time, and even though it is something that we are all kind of using, I still wouldn't say that we really understand how to properly use the internet well with each other. You know what I mean? And you can tell that with the way that we just kind of treat each other on the internet. So I think the difference between like the printing press or TV when that first started as opposed to the internet now is that, people could be more responsible with books and TV. You know what I mean? As far as interacting with other people. But interacting on the internet, there's so many more factors to it, and I just, as a people, I don't think we're mature enough yet to have that kind of access.
And what I see rising is a creator's block, if you will. That is, groups of people that primarily have come together to create content, especially of a political and social nature, regardless, honestly, of their actual ideological backing. That is, the primary central purpose, the importance they're giving is creating material and engaging in conversation.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a lot more fun than just sniping at each other. I like talking to people. I like that people are starting to talk to each other. I wish more people got involved in that. I wish more of like the ideological holdouts, like the Rileys and Steve Shives, I wish they engaged in that a little bit more often. But I can understand their reticence because I just don't think they're smart enough to go toe-to-toe with anybody.
It's an anti-censorship block to a severe degree. In that sense, it's beyond even libertarianism. Like, it's fanatic in its anti-censorship content.
I would want to say what's wrong with that, but at the same time, I do, like, there are certain situations in which I'm okay with self-imposed censorship. Like, the news doesn't report very often on suicides. They do when it's like somebody famous, but they don't really go into detail and they don't report all suicides. And the reason for that is because sometimes whenever suicide is reported on or becomes well known about, there's a spike in suicides. So I think it's kind of one of those, we've all come together in people and said we've noticed this pattern and we think that's unhealthy, so we're not going to do that because it doesn't help anything and it makes things worse. So I'm fine with self-imposed censorship for decency's sake and things of that nature, but that's me doing it. I'm choosing to do that. It's still my freedom of speech to do that, because freedom of speech is not only the freedom to say something, but also the freedom to choose not to. So, yeah, I'm fine with self-imposed censorship. But when somebody else is telling me I can't say something, yeah, I'm pretty no tolerance on that. I could say almost fanatical about it, but not really.
No, it's against the concept of abuse, whether from a left or right perspective on what specifically abuse is. Is it corporate? Is it government? Is it both? Is it the evil, bigoted right wing, like an alt-righter? Is it like, evil socialist, communist, who's trying to abuse you? But it's not an authoritarian movement.
Yeah, fuck authoritarianism. I hate that shit, man. I had parents, and I grew up and moved out, and now I'm an adult, and I can make my own fucking choices. Or at least, that's what I was told the entirety of the time that I was a child, that when I was an adult, I'd do whatever the fuck I want. Well, what the fuck?
Even among the alt-right, and the alt-right is definitely part of it. It's not a main part of this block, but it does interact with it, and there is that overlap in an anti-censorship sense. The block is literally people that they're starting to make entire careers, in some cases.
Trying to?
Out of debate.
I don't really want to debate people. I would rather just sit down and have discussions. I think when people do the YouTube debates, it's a lot of pressure because that comes off like competition. You got to win a debate. I don't think people feel as motivated to win a discussion. I like discussions.
Live streaming.
I like live streaming. I like talking to the audience on live stream. I thought that was a lot of fun to be able to actually like hear your voice, have you say something to me and not have to type it out and not wind up going into YouTube comment jail and chat and shit like that. But I like streaming. I think that's a lot of fun.
Political commentary analysis.
Oh, I do that.
Social commentary and analysis.
I do that too.
Branching out into other things.
Did you hear about the rock meat?
And gaining enormous audiences, by the way, in the process.
Damn! Looks like I'm not part of the block.
I would identify just a few names here that I would generally lump into this. And as far as whether they consider themselves to be part of such a block, it doesn't really matter whether they're on the right, on the left, or whether they don't even really care about ideological stuff itself.
Yeah, I mean, I care about ideological stuff. I just don't care about being a part of it.
They're part of that political and social conversation, primarily in a creative form, and there is that deep-seated, I think, resentment against censorship, and a willingness to work cross-ideological as well.
Oh, hell yeah. We're not going to get anything done unless we're willing to talk to each other.
That is somebody who's more on the right, talking to someone who's on the left, someone on the left talking to people on the right. Primarily, they're bonded together by a few issues which are considered of total importance, especially as far as the internet goes as a communication tool. I would say like Matt Christensen would definitely be part of this.
Never heard of him.
An individual who's certainly not a fanatic, who does his show, has a large audience, is continuing to grow, and probably will continue to invest in it over time.
Yeah. Not growing very well.
Worski would definitely be on the list. Medicare, I think, Lionel Nation, some of these others, some of these people.
I know Worski, I know Medicare, don't know the other guy.
have, they have a totally different life, sort of the 9-to-5 lifestyle, and then do it partially, like part-time, and then others primarily are content creators and literally have made a career out of it. I think we're going to see that proliferate over time.
Let's hope so. I think it's a lot of fun to get more and more people involved in this. I think everybody's got an opinion. They're like assholes. So why not put your asshole up on YouTube?
And look, you've got to understand, it's only really been 2 years since that kind of content creation had any real importance or impact.
Yeah, this last election, I think that the YouTube commentary really made a lot of difference. Depending on who it was, what type of commentary they were doing, even if it was just people capturing and putting the news up on there. People that were making, satirical, goofy videos, people that were making videos where it was spliced together, where one candidate would say something and then they'd show a clip of the candidate saying the opposite thing before. Those things, I think, made a big impact on this last election.
Because before that, a lot of people, what you've got to understand is that when the legacy media is trying to attack us by saying that we're Nazis, Russian agents, we have undue influence, and we need to be muzzled and censored, what they're doing is admitting to our power.
Power!
That's one thing we've got to understand. Until a couple of years ago, they never did that. They just laughed at us. They said, well, some YouTuber can't drive an election. YouTube and Facebook and stuff, yeah, they're gimmicky. You can certainly live stream the presidential debate, but you need CNN to moderate it, basically. The legacy media, the legacy entertainers, the legacy politics, those were the top. They were dominant, and we were just sort of gimmicky and fun.
I like to kind of still think that I'm gimmicky and fun.
Then this last election hits, and all hell breaks loose because they don't get the result that they want. And so now all of a sudden it's our fault. Independent content creation's a problem. People are too uncensored. There's not enough censorship. There's not enough abuse and authoritarianism. We have to do something about it. It's sort of like when they started trying to go after music in the wake of like the hippie movement. Or certainly the sort of angry, punky feel of maybe the late 80s into the early 90s with grunge and stuff. Oh, little Jimmy's being told that marijuana's okay by Kurt Cobain, so we have to start slapping a warning sticker on the CD. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, I think when me and Dennis were doing the podcast, we would always do news articles. And I think back then I could kind of see where things were headed, but I didn't think that they would ever fucking get here. And then when the election hit, I was looking for a new type of content to do because doing video games wasn't fun for me. And I like playing video games. It was the recording. The amount of time that it takes to edit oh my god, it takes forever. No wonder the big fucking video game guys, no wonder they have editors that they pay to do their editing, because it really almost becomes a two-person job. One person to make hours and hours and hours of content, and then the other person to comb through hours and hours and hours of content to find the parts that are worth fucking putting up. So, yeah, it was really tough to do that, but when I saw where things were going with the election, that's when, like, the old kind of idea of what I wanted the show to be with me and Dennis kind of crept back into my mind, and I was like, I could do it different, and I'd have to do it by myself because I can't have Dennis coming over every day because Dennis has got his own shit and all that kind of stuff. So it was like, yeah, I think this would probably be better because I love talking. I love talking about subjects. I love, trying to work through things in my mind, trying to logic my way through shit. So, yeah, I kind of noticed the trends, and I saw where it was going, and I figured that might be fun, and here we are.
Only now there are too many people, I think, opposing them with too much collective power and influence for them to actually pull it off, which is why they're worried. They're trying to convince the normies of society that somehow there's a compelling reason to take the greatest tool of human communication and basically throw it in the trash because a handful of corporations and politicians have to sit there shitting their pants in dismay that they can't always get their way. They're held accountable.
Yeah, isn't that what the news was supposed to do? Hold the government accountable?
Oh no, people are participating in a democratic manner as far as human opinion goes.
And that was supposed to be what voting was supposed to be. But the media started having commercials, so that had to become entertainment. And people just vote for fun. Like, I still am honestly convinced that more than half of the people that vote don't have a fucking clue what they're voting about. They're just kind of going, well, I'm voting.
Worldwide, it's influenced by other countries. They're sitting there saying, ooh, Russians shouldn't be allowed to interact with US-based content for some odd reason. Anyone else can. A US citizen can weigh in on how evil Putin is. That's fine. But if someone says, oh, well, Obama was basically stupid, and they're a Russian, oh, they're trying to influence our political system. This is spy versus spy Cold War nonsense as well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty asinine to portray the world as being such that nothing has ever, no external force has ever influenced an election. We've had wars that I'm sure have influenced elections. We've had social things going on that I'm sure have influenced elections. And anytime a foreign country just talks about us, that influences us. It's an asinine premise. Asinine.
But thankfully we have a rather large and growing bloc that is specifically, centrally allocated to simply creating and discussing things.
Yeah. It feels a lot like he's describing me. I think that's kind of cool that I kind of fit into this thing. But, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've always wanted to do this kind of stuff. So, you know, he might be seeing it as new. Old hat to me.
Not even necessarily with a personal bias in many cases.
I like to try and remove my personal bias as much as possible. I know there are a lot of people that may be watching right now going, fucking really? But you don't pay attention to the words I say.
It's primarily just content creation for content creation's sake in some cases, I think.
Yeah, judging by the views, that's what my video game videos are.
And I think that's a good thing. It doesn't mean inauthentic. They're certainly going to have everyone who would be making that sort of content has their own opinions. But an ability to see past their own bias and opinions and at least hold court with other people, discuss things with them in a rational and sane manner.
Yeah, and I've been getting that a lot in the comment section, and that's been pretty awesome. A lot of people that have been, you know, not really so much arguing, but discussing subjects with me back and forth in the comments when I have time to do the fourth part, or, you know, after back, whatever. Anyways, so, yeah, it's been pretty cool. I don't really think that I've at any point changed hearts and minds, but people are very, man, as soon as you start telling somebody they're wrong, it's just dig your heels in and don't listen. And
there's a great deal of talent there, I think, as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
And then you have people who are not part of that bloc, and that would be differentiated by they are more ideologically driven, not so much from the content creator's standpoint or the, hey, let's have a discussion, a debate standpoint, so much as I create my own content solely, not really interested in debating the point. Literally like ideological purists. You'd think of a lot of pundits of the last era that at least they have to pretend on TV that they have deep-seated views other than, hey, who's going to pay me the most so I can buy another penthouse? It's basically how they operate.
Sounds a lot like Riley and Steve.
And you see those inauthentic shills for what they are when you ruminate on the idea of someone who's like a mainstream pundit working for a multimillionaire corporation, calling Andy Worski out for taking super chats while talking to Richard Spencer. Oh no, he made a few grand or whatever in a few hours doing a live stream that involved Richard Spencer, but it would be okay if he were MSNBC and he were making hundreds of thousands in ad revenue over the course of a 60-minute interview with Richard Spencer on the lamestream cable news. That would be okay. Nobody would say that that was a problem.
Yeah, because we're just people. We're not educated.
The shills wouldn't have any problem with that whatsoever. No, that's fine. The hell, they can write a fluff piece about him and it's okay. They'll face backlash, but it's acceptable. You know, they can keep getting that revenue because, you know, money makes the world go round. But if some YouTuber does it, oh no, they don't have the master's degree in journalism. Suddenly it becomes a problem. Well, no.
Yeah, I think that just because, I mean, I gotta say, I've never really put a lot of credence in college diplomas. I've met a lot of college graduates and can't say that I fucking buy that they even went to college. So, you know?
And there's a whole block of people that I think recognize that in our collective fan base. Numbers in the millions of people at the very least. And that's just among some of the more recognizable faces among that block. What about all of those that have smaller sums of fans, but also in some cases very hardened fan bases? Someone has 10,000 subs, but they consistently get several thousand people watching anything they upload. That's a fairly good proportion that's literally interacting with all of their content. That's a lot of time they're not spending interacting with the cable news. I think that's a good thing. I think it's spectacular.
I think it's good too. I don't know. I think that it's what has brought us to this point is the fact that everybody sat around and had all these thoughts, and then they've decided that this is dogma now, and then they've recruited their little followers, and they've gone out into the world on YouTube and decided to just preach their way. And a lot of people are like, what?
So I can't wait. Over the next year, as I've said, I'm pessimistic short term. Because I think there's still too much infighting on like YouTube, on Facebook, everywhere between people who fundamentally they're all in it together and they should be fighting just centralized authoritarian abuse. Once that's over, once the paradigm flips and that abuse is no longer prevalent, then they can get down to the brass tacks and argue, okay, well, what form does the next paradigm take? You got to destroy the one that's already there before you make a new one. You can't have two competing paradigms. There's too much chaos.
Which is exactly what we have going on right now, which is exactly the problem.
Chaos is fine, but, you know, it's got to be controlled chaos, oddly enough. You know, maybe a cat, memetics. You got to kill the old paradigm off first. So, again, as always, I would say to people who primarily, you create content, some of you make a living off of it. Don't go, haul off and start, a bunch of drama with other content creators. Focus on the main enemy. Ignore the mosquito for now. There's a bear attacking you. Punch the bear in the nose, drive that off. Then you can swat the mosquito. It'll be easy. And no, don't worry, the mosquito doesn't have like malaria or mosquito super rabies or something.
Okay, now you're losing me.
So you'll be just fine. But the bear, you might not be fine against that bear. You might get mauled. You may survive, but, do you really want to take the chance? Grab a rock, grab a stick, do what you need to do. That's about all.
Sounds to me like I kind of fit in this block. I guess. I don't know. I fit in this a hell of a lot more than I fit in whatever the fuck it is Sargon's doing. I'll tell you that much. But, I like the video. I like Sticks. Like, in the beginning, I saw the guy and I saw the leather jacket with no shirt and the long hair, and I was kind of like, yeah. Because I'm like, dude, if this guy's just got a bit, that's just going to be annoying and I don't even want to bother. But he doesn't really have a bit. He sounds like a very smart guy. And, I'll pay a little bit more attention to him, I think. Yeah, I guess it's neat. I fit in a group now. Sort of. But it's the fucking closest anybody's come, so there's that. This used to be me. A sad, sad puppy. No food in the fridge, holes in my pillowcase, and all out of... Recently, things have been going great. You all have helped me out a lot. Now I have a fridge full of takeout, new pillowcases, and let's be honest, I'm never out of... But the reason that things have changed around for me like that is because I've had a lot of pressure taken off of me for buying stuff for making videos for you guys. You guys helped me buy a new capture box when my old one broke. You helped me buy a new PC when the other one turned into poop. And you helped me get to Perfect Circle concerts so that I could share that experiences with you guys. Recently I've kind of had to change the way I do things. but I found another way. You can find me on Maker Support. I'll have a link in the description, and if you'd like to donate money to keep this sort of thing going, then that's where you can do it. Thank you very much. Have a good day. I hope you have fun.